This video is part 2 to me discussing Rayman's cancelled games. Part 1 isn't necessary to watch, but it would be appreciated. I will combine both videos later on so everything is a little bit more cohesive, but to not waste any more of your time, let's jump straight into the first entry. The 2005 Rayman 4 prototype. Rayman 4 is the infamous sequel to Rayman 3. The project started around early 2005, but Ubisoft Montpellier was already developing Peter Jackson's King Kong, leaving the job to Phoenix Studio to develop the game. When it comes to what this game would have been about, the concept art and even the story could have pointed towards this game being a reboot for the franchise. For the story, while never finalized, Rayman and the rest of the characters would have been self-aware in the fact that he's in a game, with Rayman being in a video game camp for heroes, the logic being that everyone is being controlled by someone in the outside world. In the case of who's controlling Rayman, it would have been from an unnamed kid, and I'm quoting this from the Rayman 4 documents, was wounded to the point of losing all functionality in their limbs after a random gruesome incident, resulting in a somewhat emotional story inspired by Pixar movies and Tron. Now this does sound somewhat similar to Rayman 1's original pre-release story, where a kid named Jimmy took control of Rayman to battle a computer virus in his world. Honestly, I can't applaud Phoenix Studio for wanting to do a story like this. It's a little dark when you look at Rayman in this game from that perspective, as the reason Rayman looks the way he is purely comes from the fact that the person controlling him also can't use their limbs as well. And since Rayman doesn't have a neck, I'm also assuming that this kid also can't move their head around all that much either. At this point of the story, they also haven't settled on a main villain yet, but Mr. Dark and Dark Rayman were the ones they used the most, with the excuse being that either Dark Rayman was a rogue glitch, or Mr. Dark was going to reveal himself to be Dark Rayman in disguise. When it comes to the gameplay, it was going to be a 3D platformer, but it also had plans to bring in more power-ups similar to Rayman 3. There's also a bunch of concept art for this game, and from what we can see, they took a lot from Rayman 1, giving credit to the possibility of this game being a reboot. Some of the returning locations would have been Bandland, Picture City, and the Candy Chateau. As for why it was cancelled, after Ubisoft Montpellier had finished its work on Peter Jackson's King Kong, they got to work on their own Rayman 4 project, which would have been Rayman Raving Rabbids. And since they can't really have two projects being under the name of Rayman 4, the Phoenix Studio Rayman 4 project was cancelled, although remnants of it lived on through the Rayman Raving Rabbids game on the GBA, with that game carrying over some of its environments and art style. And for the next entry, something similar would happen again. Rayman Raving Rabbids, the 2006 Rayman 4 prototype. After the cancellation of Phoenix Studios' Rayman 4, Ubisoft Montpellier got to work on their own version, with them announcing it in 2006. When it comes to the game's early plot, it's actually pretty close to what we saw in the trailers. Originally, the rabbits were pretty friendly and lived amongst the Glade of Dreams, but after being shunned for how stupid they were, they retreated underground feeling bitter and resentful. And after years and possibly decades of plotting, they launched an attack planning to take over the Glade of Dreams. Certain Rayman characters were set to appear in this game, those being the baby glow boxes, Rayman's girlfriend named Simone, and most surprisingly, Andre from Hoodlum Havoc, who also has a girlfriend named Monique. Rayman would have teamed up with either Andre or his girlfriend as they worked together to deal with the rabbits. When it comes to gameplay, it would have been a 3D platformer with many different elements thrown in, one of them being the ability to engage in combat and actually fistfight the rabbits. Another aspect of gameplay would have been the ability to tame wild animals, as you can ride on spiders, eagles, and sharks to get around. Lastly, costumes would be a part of the gameplay, but would mostly be used for minigames. Progress on the game was actually going pretty well, and the game would have released on the PS2, PS3, PSP, Xbox 360, and finally the Wii. But after Ubisoft Montpellier got their hands on the Wii dev kits, they started to experiment with what other gameplay styles they can do with the game. They eventually decided that a party game was way more suited, and everything with the original game was scrapped. And just like with Rayman 4 from Phoenix Studio, remnants of it lived on through the GBA version, but this time around they were taking elements from the story. Also, this is pure speculation on my part, but if the original idea was to bring back past characters like Andre, did they intend on having Lee come back as well? Cause she's in the GBA version and actually helps out Rayman quite a bit. But aside from that, it wouldn't be until over a decade later until we would find a prototype online, featuring many aspects, locations, and gameplay features that we never knew about. In fact, we have so much to go off of with this prototype that a fan-made revival is in the works called Rayman Raving Rabbids Reburrowed, essentially giving longtime fans the sequel we've wanted for years, even if it is unofficial. the 2007 Rayman 4 prototype. Yeah, that's right, they cancelled this game up to 3 times at this point. This project started around 2007 by Ubisoft Montreux. It had a very small team at first and was expected to bring Rayman back to his roots, with some returning characters being Glowbox, the Living Stones, and the Robot Pirates, with one of the new characters being introduced being CL. We have no idea what her relation to Rayman is, but there is a chance she served as inspiration for Barbara. They both kinda have that ruggish tomboyish look to them, and later on in Rayman Adventures, Barbara even has a skin where she uses a shovel as a weapon. Is it possible that this is a homage to CL? Maybe, but the possibility is there. When it comes to the concept art, we can see that its art style was later used in Rayman Origins, with some of them even having the Origins styled logo in the corners. As for why the game was cancelled, it was probably because of Rayman Origins itself. That game did start its development around 2008 to 2009, and the original plans for Origins was also to bring the series back to its roots. And you can't really have 2 games going for the exact same goal. So I imagine after Rayman Origins was given a bigger team, Rayman 4 was cancelled yet again, which kinda lines up the timeline of events when you look at their development history. Rayman Origins did start its development around 2008, and after the first year, Ubisoft Montpellier picked up the development in 2009, which would also be the same year that the Rayman 4 prototype was cancelled. And as of right now, no build for this game has been found as of yet. Rayman Education. This was a cancelled education game that was being made for the Nintendo DS. And yeah, that's about it. The concept art does show that this game was taking inspiration from past education games, but other than that, we really don't know what happened to this game or if a prototype still exists out there. The 2013 Rayman prototype. For this entry, we know very little about it, so much so that the only reason we know this one exists is through the History of Rayman book. After the release of Rayman Legends, Ubisoft Montpellier got to work on another Rayman game right away. But unfortunately, because Rayman Legends did not sell well initially and didn't meet their financial expectations, the project was cancelled after only about a month of work. This would have released on the PS4 and Xbox One and apparently would have been an open world 3D platformer. I honestly do believe that this game could have been Rayman 4 for the 4th time at this point, as at this point Rayman was starting to make a bit of a comeback with 2 back-to-back games that were received very well. So coming out with a brand new 3D platformer with the latest consoles would have been the right move, especially since a few years later we would see the same thing happen with Crash and Spyro. This honestly could have been the perfect opportunity to make this game finally happen, but because Legends wasn't selling like crazy, this project had to be shelved for good. The Story of Rayman. I actually remember this and thought at first that this was a cancelled Rayman 1 remake, but that simply wasn't the case. The Story of Rayman was a cancelled browser game for Ubisoft Nano, which was an online service for short mini-games. A lot of work and research was put into what the logo should look like, but around 2021, the project was cancelled. We don't know what this game could have been and most likely never will, as it seems like the logo was the only thing that was done for this game. But with that, that's the end of part 2, as well as the end of all of Rayman's cancelled games. As mentioned in the beginning, I will be combining both part 1 and 2 for a later date, but with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all next time.